Well, well, well. A little birdie told me you want to learn a thing or two about lead. Honest question, do you care about your health? If I dare poke further, how far are you willing to go to preserve your health? Picture this. I was on spring break with some friends in Chicago, and if you don't know me, I'm from the middle of nowhere, so a lot of the sights in the city left me awestruck. However, none left me more awestruck than the absolutely delicious taste of their water. It's such a weird thing to be taken away by, but it got me thinking about the quality of water back home. I care a lot about getting proper hydration, so I did some digging, and I found an issue that's much greater than water taste. I think the answer to my initial question is obvious. Yes, you do care about your health, but I dare say we live ignorantly to a consistently lurking threat. Lead, my lovely audience. Lead. Lead pipes are a deep-rooted mistake in our society, one that has many harms and financial motives, but it is neither too late nor too unobtainable to be rid of it. According to Gale, people used lead water for pipes since the Roman Empire, with some awareness of its toxicity. Lead was seen as a miracle metal. The Roman Empire built intricate networks of aqueducts and pipes that were made from or lined with lead. The aqueducts were a major feat of engineering, possible thanks to the usage of lead. Lead has served as a key material in revolutionary inventions, including printing presses, munitions, and firearms. It was also widely used in paint. I'm sure if you look into the history of major technology, that eventually you'll find some iteration that used lead as a component. Pipes are likely the most important use of lead to this day, as many of our homes were designed with lead infrastructure. It emerged as a critical component of combustion engines and a potent gasoline additive. Lead's excellent durability and corrosive resistance also prompted its inclusion in the municipal water infrastructure system built in many United States cities before 1986. Seems like a really useful metal, right? Wrong. Although it seemingly has many utilities, there have been skeptics for quite some time. In 1786, Benjamin Franklin wrote a letter documenting the harmful effects of low-level lead exposure in industrial and commercial settings. 1786? They've known about this for how long? And that thing I said about the Romans earlier? The Roman Empire started around 625 BCE. It ended 476 CE. You do the math of how long ago that was. I can assure you, the health drawbacks of lead are more detrimental than the worth of its utility. Lead is very apparent when it's highly concentrated. People with high exposure, like the citizens of Flint, Michigan, which I will touch upon later on, would develop rashes after bathing in it. However, lower amounts of lead are a lot harder to detect. So you might be wondering, how does metal affect the human brain? Picture this. Your name is Calcium, and your doppelganger is named Lead. You work in a library, keeping all the books well in order with little error. One day you clock in, and Lead is ruining all the books they see. Your boss is named Brain, and for all they know, there's two people named Calcium, and they're doing a fine good job in that library. Neurons are designed to use calcium, the most abundant mineral in the human body. As a transmitter to rapidly pass signals, lead molecules look a lot like calcium molecules. So if they are present in a child's body, they can penetrate the brain, impair neuron development, and cause permanent neural damage. Lead gets into our drinking water by being a major transporter of, well, water. Pipes and faucets shed particles into what we drink. On the question of how widespread these pipes are, the EPA estimates that there are still 6 to 10 million lead service lines across the country. As of 2016, about 7% of households served by United States community water systems were established to have lead service lines, and the Biden administration estimates that around 400,000 schools and childcare facilities are currently exposed. The brain is negatively affected by lead intake. A 1% increase is enough to make teenagers 5% more likely to commit violent crime. If you want a prime example of a lead-based water crisis, look no further than Flint, Michigan. Now, you've probably heard about its water being bad, and a lot of news about it back in the day, but you probably don't know much of what actually went down there. According to Bernstein, Lenny and Brady, for decades the city bought its water from Detroit. It was piped from Lake Huron with anti-corrosion chemicals added along the way. But in early 2014, with the city under control of an emergency manager appointed by its governor, Snyder, officials switched to Flint River water in a bid to save money. This was a rather brash move, as the water would be subject to iron rust and, you probably guessed it, lead. You may ask, if the city is so unhealthy, then why didn't people just move? Well, the 2016 Wisconsin Department of Health Services report says kids from low-income families are more at risk because they have limited options for selecting housing. These families simply cannot choose to leave their bad environment nor afford to make their conditions any better. Regardless, this threat is not local, it's national. You could look all around America and find similar issues with lead. The Guardian shares that 80% of homes in Chicago had lead water contamination. Not even my perfectly delicious Primo Chicago water is safe from the dirty clutches of lead. Seems there's no way to run from lead in this nation. So, we need to fight the problem head on. How is this issue not taken seriously, you might be asking? Well, a lack of education and monetary incentives are enough to have politicians sweeping this problem under the rug. The cost of removing pipes is expensive. According to Shane's article, A Lead Problem Worse Than Flint's, the cost of replacing a singular lead pipe was $1,200 in one instance. In Flint, state-appointed managers decided to save money during a fiscal crisis in 2014 by switching from Detroit water to water from the Flint River. And they skipped the typical step of adding phosphate, which binds chemically with lead and prevents it from leaching out of pipes, in order to save about $100 a day. The main motivator, which led to the Flint, Michigan water crisis, was the desire to cut costs in the wake of a financial decline. These pipes are also difficult to find as well. Have you ever played that little board game, Battleship? You have to actively guess where your opponent is till you find a hit, and then you're golden. However, we're talking about pipes here. Now, mind you, I've never had to find lead pipes before, but it seems like pretty much a guessing game since utilities don't even know where most of these aging lines are, nor do they have enough data to map them. It's important to remember though, lead poisoning costs our world a pretty penny in itself. Lead's effect on health have serious economic consequences for those exposed. A study of Swedish students found that an increase in blood lead levels from 5 to 10 micrograms per deciliter is associated with a decrease in 9th grade GPAs of 2.2 percentile points. Now, I know that was a lot of information to soak in. Here's even more. And 2.3% decrease was also found in the likelihood of graduating high school. Academic consequences that imply a 5.5% decrease in average earnings in young adulthood. The removal of lead in our lives has, in the past, been provably a net positive. We are in the middle of an extremely mild, half-century-old fight to save ourselves from this metallic menace. Childhood lead poisoning has declined significantly in the United States over the past 50 years. That's largely due to the elimination of leaded gasoline in the 1980s and the banning of most lead-based paints. The fight is not moot. According to Kemp's book, Cities and Water, places like San Francisco, California, negotiated back and forth with the contractors to fight for better water regulations. Other cities like Green Bay and Madison, Wisconsin, replaced all of its lead pipes successfully. Cities have been able to take the initiative and fix their lead pipe issues in under a decade. So this made me think, why did I not care about lead in the water until now? As a result, I looked towards my peers to see what they had to say on the issue. Where do you get your drinking water from?
The tap.
I wanted a glass of water, the fridge, and then use the purified water that I got from the sink.
Walmart.
The tap, or I go to Walmart and buy bottled water.
Do you worry about the quality of your water?
Fairly?
No.
Yes.
A little bit.
According to the EPA, the maximum contaminant level goal for lead in drinking water is at 0 because lead can be harmful to humans even at low exposure levels. But there are between 6 to 10 million lead service lines in the United States. How does that make you feel?
It leaves me unconcerned.
I don't really care.
No bueno.
Yeah, that probably ain't good.
My friends share a similar mindset to many Americans, such as the many rural Wisconsinites who rely on one of the state's 800,000 private wells, whom assume their water is clean. Chin up. There are still ways to stay healthy. Everyone's situation with lead is different, and the fight in our government is time-consuming, so the best preventative measures is to focus on your own household or family unit. First off, find where the culprit lies. Request your local services to inspect your home for lead contamination. According to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, run tap water for at least 3 minutes before drinking, if it's been sitting for more than 2 hours, and that's regardless on if you think there's lead in your home or not. Or take this handy test by the EPA, which I will be linking in the description. Our society's detrimental relationship with lead stems from a lack of education and an inner desire to save money. Circling back to my original question, do you care about your health? I'm sure the answer's still yes. However, now that you've learned the effects of lead, it's up to you to ask yourself, how far am I willing to go for my own health? Despite being a practice from centuries ago, lead is on the leave. We need to ensure that we do anything we can to minimize its effects on our loved ones. Lead pipes must be removed from our society, a society that has the capacity to heal and move on. I assure you, it is never too late to change for the better, and the first step is knowing.